Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with a Bronze League replay. This one was posted by Pansader Letter up on the Reddit StarCraft Cast It area, so he was looking for this game to be cast, and I figured we'd take a look at it from his perspective and see what we can learn from this replay. His opponent is going to be the Protoss player Quadball up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. And obviously we're going to focus on some fairly low-level things in this game since it is a bronze game, but it's often stuff that people, even up a couple leagues, can really brush up on, and it's just basic philosophy stuff. It's not stuff that's mechanically hard to do, but oftentimes people just don't know that they should be doing it or what the right mindset is on these things. First thing that we're going to look at is the idea that SCVs bring you minerals. We obviously know this, that's kind of the entire point of them, but there's just a tendency at these levels to just not build enough of them, or to kind of get up to a certain point, just stop building, forget about it, divert your attention somewhere else. You really want to be constantly building, almost no matter what, out of your command centers, out of your nexuses, and so on, just to add workers to what you're doing. It really just is the backbone of everything. If you don't have enough money, then you can't build the appropriate things, and even when you have so much money that you don't know what to do with it, well, that's a good problem to have, and you'd be surprised at what you can do with it by throwing down extra production and just expanding your tech out and expanding your macro out. That's kind of the key to everything. Which brings us to point 2, which is that permanent production absolutely overwhelms everything. That you constantly hear that macro is really how you win the game, and it really is true. That if you just have a lot more stuff than your opponent does, it almost doesn't matter what you built, it doesn't matter how you control it at that point, it's just going to walk over them if you just have way too much stuff. That there's nothing that they're going to be able to do about it. So just out-macroing your opponent is going to decide games. Third thing we're going to look at is the idea that steady reinforcements are very important. It's not enough just to build stuff, but make sure you get it to the area that you actually need it. You'll find it's often not just the original attack that can kind of break through the enemy's line, but you need reinforcements streaming in so that when they build reinforcements at home, you've got enough to continue to overwhelm that force and just move on towards victory. So the build that we've got here, he went for refinery first, going to a barracks, and then even adding a tech lab on that barracks. So at 4 minutes in the game, we haven't even started the first marine. That can be a fairly dangerous thing to do. I mean, it is a very dangerous thing to do. If the Protoss player was doing anything aggressive whatsoever, then it would be really bad. Luckily, for some reason, the guy decided to save up about 1,100 minerals and then throw down a cybernetics core, a bunch of gateways, some more pylons, things like that, and he hasn't built any units either. But we actually don't know that at all because Pan has decided, I'm just not going to scout anything. So he hasn't even left his base, hasn't gone to take a look around. He doesn't know if this is safe at all. He has no idea what's actually going to be out there, what sort of strategy is coming, anything like that. We're just playing completely blind. There's a tendency in some of the low levels, particularly on these two-player maps, to just not scout at all. They kind of figure, well, I know where he is. He's in the other spawn location. And so they literally don't even go out and check. But the idea of scouting isn't to find out where your opponent is, it's to find out what he's doing, to adjust your strategy according to that, to know what sort of attack he's going to pull against you. Obviously at this level you're not going to get this really precise timing attack that you're going to defend against, but it's good to know just the basics. If you walked into this base for a second, you would see, okay, there's 6 gateways. Odds are I have to worry about gateway units, and you may go more heavier towards, say, Marauders than you would the Marines. You're going to know that you're not going to be building Vikings probably anytime soon. There's no tech up. You know that you can safely use your mules because you're not going to need to scan for DTs or anything of that nature. So just scouting what they are doing, what they're not doing, can really help you shape what's actually going on. Supply blocking is a really big issue. He's already done it once this game, and we're kind of walking into that again. At about 7 minutes here, we're at 34 supply. there's actually no supply depot continuing on, so we can't build any more out of these things for the time being. That's not going to be able to afford another Marauder. He's not building out of his orbital command, not building another Marine or anything like that. And he's supply blocked here for 30 seconds so far, and we haven't even started a supply depot yet. Finally, he kind of realizes what's going on here, and he's now at the 35-35. I can't build any more Marines out of here. And he drops the supply down. So he calls down the extra supply. That could have been another mule that gets us more resources. This force moves out, luckily catches these stalkers in move command. So pretty good there. They obviously just kind of would have died anyway. But if he was a little quicker with the reaction, he maybe could have kited that stuff back, and or at least gotten away. When he sent stuff out, the Protoss player, it kind of did that weird auto split where half his army went one way, half went the other. Loses these stalkers here. Pretty fortunate to be in that position. There's really no reason that this guy should have been out on the map with that type of force. It's a really weak force, but then just kind of throws the rest away. Gets trapped outside, decides to stem, I guess just to make himself feel better. I don't know what that was going to do. There was no reason to stem there. There's no reason to throw that force completely away. Again, stems again, and commits to losing this. He could have left with about 6-7 units, lost only the one up top. Might have been decent to take a poke up there, but really once you saw there's no expansion, there's not a lot of sense in going up this ramp. He's not going to win that fight. If he goes up, he's going to get warped in on. He's likely going to get force fielded in, so just don't make that poke up there. It's just kind of a no-win situation. There's no reinforcements coming behind it, so it's not like you're going to win the game or anything. You're really just going to lose those units. Maybe you do a little damage, but you're more than likely just going to lose those, so don't do that sort of thing blindly. Finally got the command center down there, making a bunch of medevacs, but we're queuing up a lot as well. As much as I want constant production coming out of these things, doing this is just pre-spending your resources. It's taking away from you resources that you could be using in other places. And so we're not building out of this barracks. This barracks, we could have thrown down more. The Protoss comes up here. Again, just a horrible attack on his part. There's no reason for him to be going up this ramp. A lot of this stuff is not in attack range. And against medevacs, you're just not going to owe damage to that. There's no real point to any of this. He's just throwing away his entire army for no apparent reason. The Terran player, these ones in the back are the only ones that can touch you. So you would tend to want to focus those down ahead of the Zealots. I know that they were in there attacking the barracks, but just bringing a thing or two over to repair that is going to permanently keep the Zealots out of range. So worry about the ranged forces behind that. Take those out as your priority. Come in late with a bunch of Protoss reinforcements. Again, that's not going to do anything. As much as he wants to attack up this ramp, Terran's perfectly content to just sit there and let him do it. You can see with only a very small force, he held that off, because with enough medevacs out on the field, it's essentially an immortal army. It's just going to heal forever. There's no way that he can out DPS this many medevacs from the low ground with only a few things firing at a time. Checking in on the unit count again, we can see that there's still only 22 SCVs, even though we've added another command center. We know that we want to populate these minerals down here once we get free. He should have been making these SCVs all along. There should be 40 or 50 out on the map now, so that when we take that new base, automatically 20-something are just transferred over to it. Really, you want to take that a little sooner anyway. But given that he didn't, you definitely want to make sure that it's saturated the moment we go over. Again, just picking off everything as it comes up there. You can pull a few SCVs to repair things so that you don't have to be focusing down the Zealots. You can literally just ignore them and focus down the soft, much more expensive gas units that are behind them. And they're the only thing that can reach you anyway. Once they're dead, he's not going to leave 8 Zealots there to attack a supply depot, and if he does, well, you kill them too. But you might as well take out the higher value targets first. as opposed to just targeting them down on the way. We see that he's kind of geared up, spent a lot of resources on the upgrades here, gearing up for double, but we don't have the gas for the second thing at the moment. We've kind of fallen off in our gas and economy here. There's not enough SCVs to come over here right now. He hasn't prepared Vespian geysers. We're kind of short on that one resource at this point as we get some tanks out, and all of a sudden we're consuming a lot of gas, or want to be consuming a lot of gas, but there's just not the backbone of the economy to actually support that, and he's making no effort to expand this. We're going to be kind of mined out here at home reasonably soon. We're about halfway done our gas. You've definitely got to be looking towards another base. Really, by this point, looking towards 2 or 3 other bases to make sure that those resources come in. And right when we're kicking into really high minerals coming in from these mules, we're supply blocked just absolutely brutally again at 62 supply. If all of these things were pumping out after that massacre that we just performed on the Protoss player, he's just now replaced this army. It's kind of back up to about the size it was, adding on Colossus tech and so on. He's got the resources to do this, but he's actually spending them. This is a reasonable amount of money to be having. This is actually quite good. He was able to replace that completely while a supply block prevented us from completely taking that advantage. And again, we're blocked at 70-70 again. So he only threw down 1 supply depot, and we're right at it again, finally making some room now. There could easily be 20 more Marines out on the field. There could easily be 5 more tanks out on the field, a bunch more medevacs, at least 4 more medevacs out on the field right now, and they're just not there due to that supply blocking. So what was an absolutely game-winning advantage from this stupid attack up the ramp, and that's what it was just throwing units away for absolutely nothing. The Protoss player caught right back up just because we supply blocked ourselves. He's got a base down in location. He's taking gas from it, and that was his, you'll notice that was his first priority. That's the resource that he was lacking in. Again, both players should have done this a lot sooner, but at least he knew to prioritize that. Terran comes up. He will kind of crush through this. The Protoss player really slow to react, which is quite unfortunate, I guess, for him. Really bad Colossus non-micro going on there, and we're going to see an even worse example in a little bit as the Colossus just decides to kind of walk down into the forces. Had the Protoss player been paying any attention whatsoever, this force is crushable, just absolutely easily destroyable. With so many Marines out there, 2 Colossus, had he just pulled them back and put down an array of fire, could have completely wiped that out with the force that he had. Make him come up the ramp and it would have been fine. We can see that no reinforcements were actually coming in for the Terran player, so as good as it is that he's still producing back at home, there was nothing streaming its way over, and now we're not even producing. So you've got to make sure that things actually come with you and continue to come with you. If that first fight had been handled a little better by the Protoss, you'd probably have a fairly even outcome. The Colossus would have taken a lot of damage from the tanks. The Marines would have gone down really quickly to Colossus and Stalkers. It definitely would have depleted forces on both sides, but then the Protoss player is the one that had 6 gateways here that he could just immediately warp in and warp in again and warp in again as this fight was actually happening. So if you don't have resources or reinforcements coming across the map to help you out, you're eventually going to get dwindled down and whittled down until you don't have enough to actually finish your opponent off. There's really not a lot here. There's like 11 Marines and 2 tanks. It's a good force given that your opponent has literally nothing, but had he even handled that fight a tiny bit better, you'd be left with half this size, and honestly the probes can take care of it at that point, and the game continues on. If you make sure that you are reinforcing yourself, and it's particularly a very important thing to know for Terran players, it can be hard to manage those rally points. I know you're taking it from a lot of facilities. It's not like Zerg where it comes out of a few key places. You can manage that all off basically one hotkey. It's not like the Protoss players that get to warp into a location that's closer to it, those take a different type of management. Obviously, the Protoss has to look away to do that and throw it down, but the Terran has to always make sure his resupply lines are kept clean. He's not getting those forces picked off. They're coming kind of in a group. They're coming to the right place. He's scooping them up. Everything is very important in that you want to make sure that those are coming forward. And if that's not happening, eventually that's going to put you in a lot of trouble where you're doing a lot of damage, and then you kind of get wiped up and you're back to square one. So overall here, macro needs to be a lot better. We have to continue with worker production a lot more than we were. You can see as soon as the expansions went down, he became more interested in SCV production again. But he should have already been at 40 or 50 before they ever went down, and then just transfer all those over at the same time. Designate which resources are important to you. The gas was more important than the minerals were at this point, so make sure that you're prioritizing that I want to go take this expansion so I can get my gases up immediately. And obviously be constantly producing. Do not supply block yourself. At this point in the game, I would say about 40 to 50 supply was just completely not in the game, just due to about 2 minutes and 30 seconds of hard supply block time where nothing was allowed to be built. And if you can imagine taking this force and then dumping 50 more supply onto it, it would be absolutely overwhelming. It was enough to win anyway, but it would have been absolutely overwhelming to the Protoss player. It wouldn't have even been close. So overall, I hope that helps. And Pan, I'm happy to cast your games. And send me another in a little while if you like, and I'll throw that one on as well. Thanks for watching, guys.